Thank you for joining today's online travel presentation, where we discover some of the best winter rail vacations. My name is Lynn, and I am pleased to be your presenter today. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly take care of a little housekeeping. First, we will hold all questions until the end. If during the course of the presentation you have questions, please type them in the comment box in the GoToWebinar toolbar. We will cover them at the end of the session. And second, there will be 2 polling questions during the presentation, and we encourage you to participate. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I'm Lynn, and together we're going to explore some great destinations in the US, Canada, and Europe, each ideal for a winter getaway. But before we dive in, I want to share a little about Vacations by Rail. We are the leading rail vacations company in the United States and the trusted authority on rail, with the largest collection of vacations to destinations around the globe. The cornerstone of each of these itineraries is a rail journey aboard at least one iconic train. Vacations by Rail is a great rail journeys company, which means we're backed by more than 45 years of experience in the specialty of global rail tours. We are a member of the National Tour Association, American Bus Association, and we are AARP's preferred rail provider. And in addition to unmatched vacations, we offer best-in-class customer care from your first call or email to your return from your trip. So, why a winter rail vacation? A rail vacation is a great way to get a new perspective on the region through which you're traveling. This is experiential travel at its best. Winter makes these train journeys extra special. The romance of the rails and the warmth of your cozy onboard accommodations provide the perfect ambiance to chug along snow blanketed prairies and past mountains dressed in winter white. It's like something out of a movie, and I hope I painted a really great image for you guys. One of the perks of a winter vacation, beyond a totally new perspective of a destination, is that many popular cities have fewer visitors, and there's a twist on popular activities. For instance, during the spring, summer, or fall, you can visit Moline Canyon in Jasper, Alberta for great hikes and some lush scenery. But in the winter, you can go into the canyon and walk along the ice-covered canyon floor. It is awesome and exciting and something that you can do in no other season. The other really special thing about travel in the winter is the trains are less crowded. This is notable for a few different reasons. First, there's better availability for your accommodation choice on the train. Second, the observation and lounge cars usually have more open seats. And lastly, the train staff is more readily available. So if you're curious about the history of the train or any of the towns you're passing through, or if you're interested in what it's like to work on the train, the staff is really eager to share their knowledge and experiences with you. So Vacations by Rail offers a variety of winter itineraries for every travel style. Each offers quality inclusions, amazing experiences aboard the train, and unique excursions. Now it's time for our first polling question. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that for you. And here it is. Have you vacationed in the winter? So go ahead and let us know your answer. I'll leave this open for about 30 seconds to give everyone a chance to reply. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close this poll. And it looks as though under 38% of today's attendees have vacationed in the winter. I think you're in the right place to get some inspiration for your next seasonal getaway. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to start in the US, and the first itinerary is a really magical one. It's our Aurora Viewing at Bettles Lodge vacation. It's no secret that the northern lights you see on your screen are the big highlight of this trip, followed, of course, by the peacefulness that comes with immersing yourself in Alaska's winter landscapes. So this is a 6-day independent vacation, which means everything has been arranged for you, but you are traveling on your own and at your own pace. There are frequent departures during the fall and winter months. Your journey begins in Anchorage here on the bottom left, where you board the Alaska Railroad's Aurora train, and you're going to head for Fairbanks. So here's a shot of Fairbanks up here, not wintry, but this is Fairbanks on the top left. In Fairbanks, that's where the real adventure begins because you're going to board a plane and fly to Bettles. The flight is a super scenic one. It takes you across the Yukon River and over the Arctic Circle. And when you land, you're going to be met by your transfer and en route to your lodge, go on a guided tour of the town of Bettles. Bettles Lodge is located in the heart of Alaska's wilderness. And here it is right here. There are a variety of winter activities that you can participate in at the lodge, and it ranges from cross-country skiing and snowshoeing to dog sledding, snowmobiling, or ice fishing. But the real highlight of the itinerary happens at night. It's the big show. It's the Aurora Borealis, and here you can see it on the bottom right, just another shot of that beautiful sky. You get 2 nights of unobstructed Northern Lights viewing. And then when your stay at Bettles is concluded, you return to Fairbanks by plane where your trip concludes. So in this beautiful wooded setting, you look to the skies and see some wonders of nature. That to me is one of the best highlights of this trip, 2 nights of Northern Lights viewing. Now, that combined with the scenic rail journey aboard the Aurora train is what makes this a favorite for many travelers. Now let's talk about the train for just a minute. The Aurora Winter Train runs between Anchorage and Fairbanks. It's a full-day journey on the Alaska Railroad's flagship route. Travelers enjoy the winter wonderland of Alaska's backcountry from the comfort of their cozy rail car, and that rail accommodation is a comfortable seat beside a large picture window, and dining is available on the train. Keep your fingers crossed for a clear day if you do take this trip, because on those clear days you may catch a view of Denali rising above the Susitna River along your journey. But regardless of the weather, anywhere along the tracks you may see the sight of moose in the wild, which for me, any animal sighting adds some extra excitement to my travels. So let's move on to the continental US and one of the great wonders of the world, the Grand Canyon, which is grand any time of the year, but extra special in the winter. So we're going to be talking about our winter escape to the Grand Canyon. This itinerary is available traveling both round trip from Chicago and round trip from Los Angeles. I'm going to focus on the itinerary traveling round trip from Chicago, but it's important to know and this is available traveling round trip from the West Coast as well, which then makes this journey shorter by 2 days. So on the winter escape to the Grand Canyon itinerary, traveling round trip from Chicago, it's a 6-day independent vacation and departs daily between November and March. This trip is one of our most popular winter rail vacations in the US, not just for the destination, but because it also shines the light on 2 great rail journeys. So let's dive into this itinerary a bit. Your journey begins in Chicago, right here in the bottom middle. And you can see that icy Lake Michigan there. And in Chicago, you're going to go to the historic Union Station and board the Southwest Chief for the overnight journey across 8 states to Flagstaff, Arizona. Now, this rail trip is an incredible one. You're going to leave the cold and snow of the Midwest and travel the milder climates as you head towards Arizona. Now, on arrival, you're going to transfer to Williams, where a stay at the Grand Canyon Railway Hotel will provide a welcome rest for you, because the next morning, after breakfast at the hotel, you're going to board the Grand Canyon Railway for the journey to the south rim of the canyon. And then when you arrive, you're going to have 1 night there along with a freedom tour of the South Rim. Now, this is sort of an orientation tour that will show off some of the best viewpoints at the South Rim. After your stay at the Grand Canyon, you'll return to Williams on the Grand Canyon Railway and then return to Chicago aboard the Southwest Chief. Some of the highlights of this trip include that round trip journey on the Grand Canyon Railway, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Another highlight is that one night at the South Rim. You'll be staying at the Maswick Lodge, and as a fun fact, this lodging is named after a Hopi Kachina figure said to watch over the Grand Canyon. Your other hotel accommodations on this itinerary are the Grand Canyon Railway Hotel, once upon arrival and once before returning home on the Southwest Chief train. And finally, the Freedom Tour of the Grand Canyon offers a great way to get acquainted with the South Rim. But best of all, it's a great way to see this hugely popular destination when there are considerably less people visiting. And if you're lucky, you'll see the canyon dusted in snow, like this image here on your screen. I mean, that's just an incredible sight, and not what we often think about when we think of the Grand Canyon. So let's talk a little bit about the Grand Canyon Railway. It is definitely a highlight of this trip. The vintage cars of the Grand Canyon Railway travel daily between Williams and the South Rim of the Grand Canyon. It's been operating since 1901 and taking passengers to the heart of one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's not just a mode of transportation. It is truly a trip back in time on these lovingly restored rail cars. The ride is made in circa 1923 Pullman cars, and it runs on tracks laid in the 1800s. Now, this train has had many notable passengers, from presidents to Hollywood stars. A handful of them include Presidents Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Hollywood stars Clark Gable, Jimmy Durante, and Doris Day. So you'll be in good company. Now let's travel overseas to what I think is one of the most perfect winter destinations, Switzerland. And by far, one of the most popular itineraries during the winter season is our Grand Train Tour of Switzerland in winter. This is an 11-day itinerary and takes you to Switzerland's historic cities, resort towns, and quaint villages, all while showing off some incredible winter scenes. So your time here begins and ends in Zurich. So let's look at the map here. Here's Zurich. And we're going to continue then to Lucerne, Interlaken, Montreux, Zermatt, St. Moritz, and then return back to Zurich. Each destination brings ample sightseeing opportunities and full immersion in Swiss culture. There is plenty of free time to explore on your own, and it's balanced with planned excursions as you move through the country. And you'll look at the map and you notice that there are some great rail journeys here, including the Glacier Express and the Bernina Express. So let's get into the itinerary. The images on this slide call out some of the highlights of the trip. At the top, you'll see, at the bottom, you'll see Mount Rigi, the Mount Rigi Railway. The Mount Rigi itself is known as the Queen of the Mountains, and it is a great excursion from Lucerne. The railway that climbs this mountain has been operating since 1871. And at the summit, you can look out over these awesome views that stretch as far as the Black Forest and the Bernese Alps. On the top, you'll recognize this photo as the very famous Glacier Express. It is quite possibly Switzerland's most famous train. On this itinerary, you get to take the complete route between Zermatt and St. Moritz. It's a full-day trip brimming with dramatic scenery that runs from the Rhone Valley over the Oberalp Pass and through the impressive Rhine Gorge. Now, while the excursion to Mount Rigi and a journey on a Glacier Express are both notable experiences, there are other really great highlights to this trip, and I want to point out a couple of them. First, it would be the Schilthorn. you can take an excursion to Mount Chiltern, which offers great views of Swiss peaks, including the Eiger, the Monk, and the Jungfrau Mountains from the summit of the Chiltern. So this railway has been operating since 1967. It's actually an aerial cableway, and it's been taking visitors from the Lauterbrunnen Valley up to the summit of Mount Chiltern. And you go in 4 different legs, if you will, of this trip. So the mountain offers more than just those incredible views, though. If you're a fan of James Bond movies, you may recognize Mount Chiltern as playing a role in the film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So James Bond is definitely a popular aspect to the Chiltern experience. And at the summit, you can participate in, you can walk in James Bond's footsteps through the interactive adventure exhibition called Bond World 007, or you can visit the 007 Walk of Fame. Another great feature of this itinerary, and it's one that we don't really tout as like a destination, but it's definitely a full experience. It's the inclusion of a Swiss travel pass, and that includes unlimited travel aboard trains, buses, and boats, as well as access to mountain excursions, just like the Mount Rigi and Mount Chiltern excursions we just talked about. So this expands your possibilities in each destination. So this itinerary is packed with great winter rail excursions, but one that I particularly like is the Bernina Express. So you're going to depart Switzerland on this iconic train, and you're crossing the border into northern Italy. The route itself passes through a variety of terrain, including snow-blanketed orchards, on the way to Tirano, Italy. So a scenic highlight of the route comes as the train crosses the famous Bruzio Circular Viaduct. And you begin in the mountains and wind your way down to the street level, and it's just an incredible experience, a wonderful excursion. So we're going to stay in the winter wonderland of Switzerland, but let's take a look at an elevated Swiss seasonal adventure, and it's our deluxe Switzerland in winter itinerary. This 9-day trip begins and ends in Zurich. And Zurich is the largest city in the Swiss Confederation, and it has a lot of airlift. So we tend to go in and out of Zurich frequently. And this particular itinerary, just like the last one, makes a great loop through some of the best scenery. We are visiting some of similar destinations and some new ones. So we're going to go from Zurich to St. Moritz and nearby Sils Maria, the car-free town of Zermatt, which is tucked under the shadow of the Matterhorn. And then we're going to round out the trip with a visit to Bern and then Interlaken, returning to Zurich at the end. So as I mentioned, we begin in Zurich, which offers the perfect balance of historic and modern. And from Zurich, you board a train for St. Moritz. And when the train arrives in the station in St. Moritz, you'll be transferred to the Hotel Waldhaus in Sils Maria. The Hotel Waldhaus is an incredibly historic hotel, and it's situated in this charming little town that's based at the foot of rugged mountains and surrounded by this like snowy valleys. To picturesque setting. You're going to spend 2 nights there, and you'll have time to enjoy the hotel's amenities and then enjoy the nearby scenery. And then you're going to go back to St. Moritz and board the world's slowest express train, the incomparable Glacier Express. And you're going to take that to the resort town of Zermatt, where winter sports, of course, always reign supreme. And then after your time in Zermatt, you head to Bern before moving out to the countryside for a look at the astounding beauty of Interlaken. And in Interlaken, you get a treat. You get a journey to the top of Europe, the Jungfraujoch. Now, the wonderful thing about this itinerary is there is ample time to explore each destination on your own, but we've also arranged fantastic excursions, which range from a boat cruise to Interlaken, to rides aboard renowned railways, and even a horse-drawn carriage excursion. Let's take a look at some of those highlights really quick. One of the more unique things and truly wintry experience is an excursion to Valfax. Now, the Fex Valley, or Valfax as the locals call it, is the highest continually populated valley in the Swiss Alps. While it's a great year-round destination, you're lucky to get a peek at it in winter on this itinerary because we take a horse-drawn carriage ride through the powdery landscape. I mean, that just seems so romantic to me. Another great experience occurs in Zermatt, and it's aboard the Gornergrat Railway. So you're going to board that in the center of the village, and the train ascends 3,089 meters up Gornergrat Mountain. This is a great way to get an up-close look at the Matterhorn, and the ride itself takes 33 minutes to go up to the top of the mountain. And when you're there, you can step out onto the station's viewing platform for more fantastic views. And when you're done, you take the train back down, and the remainder of your day, you can just spend shopping and exploring this car-free village. Another memorable excursion occurs from Interlaken. We talked about the journey on the Jungfrau Railway. Interlaken is where some of the most iconic sites in the Swiss Alps are, and it's the peaks of the Eiger, the Monk, and the Jungfrau. And you get to see it from this three-tiered rail journey to get to the top of Europe. So the excursion begins on the Bernese Oberland Railway, and you're going to follow the route to the Lauterbrunnen or Grindelwald, depending on the day, at which time you will change over trains to the Wingern-Alp-Rack Railway, and this train takes you to Kleinschedek, and this is where you board the final train. It is the Jungfrau Railway itself, and you're going to climb to the top of the mountain. Now, when you get to the Jungfraujoch, which is the top of Europe, you will be in the highest railway station in Europe. And at the top, you can look over the surrounding mountains. There's a great observation deck. There's a shopping promenade. You can hike around outdoors or explore the ice palace. There's dining options. I mean, there's plenty to do at the top there. In all, going up to the top, the journey takes about 2 hours, so you'll want to plan on that coming down as well. So the train we'll spotlight with this trip is the Glacier Express, and that's always a treat. It winds its way through the Swiss Alps, and here are some notable facts about it. It travels through 91 tunnels and crosses 291 bridges. The full length of the journey between St. Moritz and Zermatt takes 8 hours to complete, so it's definitely a full scenic day on the train. And so what do you do in those 8 hours? You sit back and relax and enjoy the views through the panoramic windows next to your seat. And as you're drinking in this scenery, you're served a delicious 3-course meal featuring regional Swiss cuisine, and you just enjoy the views of the snow-capped mountains and the canyons and the narrow valleys, and all blanketed with snow. It's just gorgeous. So now we're going to head back to North America and the delightful winter wonderland of Canada. So the first winter itinerary we're going to talk about is our Winter in the Rockies itinerary, which covers the best destinations in the Canadian Rockies: Jasper, Lake Louise, and Banff. Each is a delight any time of year, but as you may guess, when the snow falls and the lakes ice over, something really magical happens. It needs to be experienced to be believed, but trust me when I tell you, the Canadian Rockies will make anyone fall in love with winter. Winter in the Rockies is an 8-day independent rail vacation. It begins in Vancouver and includes 1 night on Via Rail's Canadian, and then moves into the Canadian Rockies with overnight stays in Jasper, Lake Louise, and Banff. And then you take a scenic transfer to Calgary at the end, where you can fly home. Let's take a deeper dive into this itinerary. So we begin in Vancouver, and arrivals are at your leisure, and you're going to stay at the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver. If time permits after you check in, you're going to want to explore the city. It's a great mix of coastal and cosmopolitan, and it has amazing shopping on Robson Street, really great dining options, and plenty of museums and sightseeing activities. The next day is when the excitement begins, though. You're going to board Via Rail's Canadian for the overnight journey to Jasper. Now, I mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. An overnight rail journey in the winter is extra special. It's cozy, it's steeped in nostalgia, and oftentimes it's not very crowded, which means dining cars and observation cars offer good seating choices. You have excellent access to onboard attendants who want nothing more than to serve you and to talk to you about the train and the route you're traveling. So that's going to be a great experience for you. And the following day is just one night on the train. The following day, you arrive in Jasper and transfer to the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. You're going to spend 2 nights here, and how you choose to spend your time is entirely up to you. Your hotel is going to offer a number of winter activities, from ice skating on Lac Beauvert to cross-country skiing. There's usually a fire roaring in the fireplace, and it's a very cozy lodge. If you are interested in activities outside of the hotel, ask a rail specialist about adding an optional excursion. One of my favorites, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is an ice walk through Moline Canyon. The frozen waterfalls you're going to see are amazing. So scenic transfers are included on this itinerary, and it will take you to each onward destination in the Rockies. So as you leave Jasper, you're bound for Lake Louise, and you're going to be staying at the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. Now, this is an iconic hotel, and it sits not far from the shores of Lake Louise itself. And the Victoria Glacier is looming in back of it. In the winter, every year the chateau builds an ice castle on the lake once it's frozen over. And that ice is actually imported from British Columbia. So, I mean, what a sight, right? You're only here for one night, but there are a variety of activities that you could take advantage of. When I was in Lake Louise many Januaries ago, I took a snowshoeing expedition in the wooded hills not far from the lake, and it was led by the hotel's heritage guide. It was interesting, and it provided plenty of good laughs, as I'm sure you can imagine. But next time, I think I'll ask about the horse-drawn carriage ride, which is probably a little bit more my pace. So after Lake Louise, you're off to Banff and the castle in the Rockies, the Fairmont Banff Springs. Now you have 2 nights in Banff, and like the other Fairmont hotels you'll stay at on this trip, this one has ample activities and amenities. I mean, I hear their spa is a great one, and you're definitely not going to want to miss leaving the hotel and visiting Banff Avenue with its unique shops and dining. Just a reminder that Alberta has no sales tax, which feels like a sale, like everything's on sale for me. So if you're interested in shopping, this is the place to go. A scenic transfer after your stay in Banff brings you to Calgary, where the itinerary concludes. The deluxe stays at Fairmont hotels and those excellent Canadian Rockies destinations are true highlights of this trip. The itinerary has flexibility built into each day, so you can see and do it what you want when you want. And a rail specialist can assist you with recommendations for activities you may wish to add in advance if you desire. So we can't move on without mentioning the train again, which is a true highlight of the itinerary. The Canadian travels via rail's signature route between Vancouver and Toronto. And on this trip, you're traveling just one leg between Vancouver and Jasper. So one of the most scenic stretches of this journey then is between Kamloops and Jasper. And this is during the daylight portion of your trip, so you're not going to want to miss it. You're going to want to get to an observation car or to your private accommodations and check this out, because the train's going to travel along the Fraser River, and there's a point where it reaches what's called Hell's Gate, and it's a portion of the river that narrows and it rapidly forces water to erupt at an incredible speed, which is how it got its name. At this point, the Canadian also joins the North Thompson River and will offer beautiful views of Pyramid Falls, which may be frozen when you pass by, as well as Mount Robson. It's the highest peak in the Canadian Rockies, and you'll see that just as you're heading into Alberta. So this fully restored 1950s era Streamliner train offers a variety of accommodations. If vacations by rail, we believe our travelers should have the most inclusive experience. So every accommodation class we offer is in Sleeper Plus class or above, which ensure that meals are included. You're going to have access to lounge cars, and you certainly your privacy is ensured. On this particular winter in the Rockies itinerary, your accommodation is a cabin for two, which is a private bedroom that by day includes two chairs, which are placed beside a picture window. And at night, your train attendant converts your accommodations to an upper and lower berth. There is an ensuite bathroom included as well, but shower facilities are located at the end of your train car. If you're a solo traveler, there is a cabin for one, which that would be your accommodation choice then. So the last itinerary we're going to spotlight takes us to the east side of Canada, Eastern Canada, in the province of Quebec. It's our Montreal and Quebec holiday itinerary. So this is the 6-day independent vacation. It connects stays in Montreal and Quebec with a short journey along the St. Lawrence River on Via Rail's corridor service. So let's take a look at this itinerary. It begins in Montreal, which is the second largest city in Canada, and you're going to spend 2 full days exploring this city. Montreal is a really interesting mix of old and new. It's a cosmopolitan city, and it's called Canada's cultural capital. It has chic shopping, great restaurants, and an exciting nightlife. But aside from all of that, everywhere you turn, you get a glimpse of the city's rich history. So after your 2 days sightseeing in Montreal, and sightseeing is included, a comprehensive city tour that takes you to some popular destinations like Notre Dame Basilica, the Olympic complex, and to the top of Montreal, where you can have stunning views of over the entire city. You're going to board Via Rail's corridor service train for the journey to Quebec City. And in Quebec City, you have 3 days to admire the 17th century architecture and uncover its history as you walk along the cobblestone walkways and participate in a comprehensive sightseeing tour of the city. On this tour, you're going to see some famous sites like the Latin Quarter, Place Royale, and the Basilica. And you're also going to have ample time at your leisure where you can visit quaint shops, indulge in some delicious French cuisine, and just soak in the European flair that's there. You almost forget you're in Canada. So comprehensive touring and stays in fantastic hotels come standard with this vacation and are highlights in itself for sure. But one of the understated highlights is the chance to immerse yourself in the European influences in both Montreal and Quebec City. And to do so in winter is just makes you feel like you're over in Europe in the winter. Additionally, Quebec City is in particular, it's known for its winter festivals. And so if you want to experience the city like a local, visiting those outdoor gatherings is definitely a suggestion. So before we move on, let's talk a little about Via Rail's corridor service. It's a convenient option for leisure travelers, and it's a really comfortable short journey that connects two of Quebec's popular cities. Um, the rail line itself in its entirety travels between Windsor and historic Quebec City. There are over 370 corridor service trains that depart weekly, and travelers have the choice of economy or business class seating on the train. Now, our independent vacations offer a good deal of flexibility. You can personalize many of them with flexible options. And my biggest suggestion is to ask a rail specialist about upgrading your experience to enhance your winter rail vacation. So these enhancements can range from upgrading your hotel accommodations in select cities to adding additional nights in certain destinations, or simply adding a sightseeing excursion. So it's time for another polling question. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. And it is, what is most enticing about traveling in winter? So there are four options on your screen: the destinations, cozy overnight rail experiences, winter activities, and fewer crowds. So I'm going to leave this poll open for about 30 seconds. Go ahead and select your top choice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. And it appears as though the majority of you said the winter activities is the most enticing part of a winter vacation, followed by fewer crowds and popular destinations. And honestly, I can't disagree with you. The winter activities in itself, I mean, the season is so short. The activities are so unique, and definitely is a very large draw. So let's move on. If you'd like to learn more about our winter rail vacations or vacations for any season, you can request one of our brochures by calling 877-929-7245 or visit vacationsbyrail.com. To make a reservation, you can contact any of our really helpful rail specialists toll free. The number there is on your screen. Again, it's 877-929-7245. You can also book online at vacationsbyrail.com. And just a reminder that the rail specialist who assists you with your reservation is your dedicated Vacations by Rail contact until you return home from your trip. So it's always nice to have that one key point person who is very invested in you and your vacation, and they're there to assist you at any time. So it's the Q&A portion of our session, and I see we have plenty of questions here. We do have time for a few, so I'm going to just dive right in, see what we can answer. All right, the first question: are meals included? So yes, some meals are included, although how many really depends on the itinerary. I would suggest, if you're curious, our website does spell out what meals are included on what day, or you can call a rail specialist and they can assist you with answering those questions about the types of meals and what days they're included. All right. How will my luggage be handled? So on independent vacations, like the ones that we just talked about, you are responsible for handling your own luggage. Baggage handling is not included. Now, we do offer escorted itineraries, and those are handled a little differently because baggage handling is usually included on many of those trips. So it's always good to double check. It is spelled out on our website on the specific tour pages if baggage handling is included or not. If you're in doubt, please be sure to ask a rail specialist and they will certainly advise you. Okay, the next question: how active will I be on my tour? So that's a great question. For the itineraries covered in this webinar, you're really as active as you want to be, as there's a really good balance of planned excursions and free time. Um, so, so if you are a more active person, then you'll definitely want to be out and about and exploring more and maybe taking on more adventurous excursions. And if you really just want a super relaxing vacation and sit by a cozy fire or just relax and stare at the winter scenes, that's possible too. All right. Can these itineraries be traveled in reverse? Yes, they absolutely can be traveled in reverse. So any of our rail specialists would be happy to make these arrangements for you. Just simply mention it to them when you call in that this is something that you would like to start from, say, Calgary and go to Vancouver, for, or whatever destination you want to begin and end in, and they can certainly make that happen. All right, our next question is about the train. On corridor trains, are those business class seats? And if not, can we be upgraded? So this depends on the class of service selected. We talked about corridor trains in our Montreal and Quebec holiday itinerary. And there are three classes of service for this particular itinerary. So our moderate level of service features economy class on the trains. And this includes a seat with a picture window, and light meals and snacks and beverages are available for purchase. Superior and deluxe classes of service include a business class seat on the corridor service train. Now, business class features ergonomic seats, side tables, and an electrical outlet so you can charge your phone or your iPad. And there is meal service and cocktails in this class of service. All right, the next question. Are there rail vacations that travel over Christmas and New Year's? Sure, many of these itineraries can travel during the winter holidays. We also have itineraries that are specifically designed for Christmas and New Year's. And for instance, our Pacific Northwest at Christmas time itinerary, which takes you from Seattle up into Victoria and Vancouver, or our Christmas in the Rockies itinerary, which is very similar to Winter in the Rockies, but it is a bit longer with longer stays in each Canadian Rockies resort town. So our website has a collection of these itineraries. And of course, if you have specific questions or about these itineraries traveling over Christmas and New Year's, or about itineraries that are specifically developed for Christmas and New Year's, any of our rail specialists can assist you as well. All right, we have time for a couple more questions, and we're going to talk about flights. The first question is, are flights from Fairbanks to Bettles Lodge included in the cost of the trip? So this particular question is related to our Aurora viewing at Bettles Lodge itinerary. And yes, your round trip flights between Fairbanks and Bettles is included in the price of the trip, as are the transfers to your hotel. All right, the last question. Do you help with booking flights to the start of the trip? So unfortunately, Vacations by Rail does not book flights. So you are responsible for making your own flight arrangements from your home or the airport closest to your home to the start of the trip and your return. That's all the time we have for questions today. I know we have many more waiting answers. They will be passed along to one of our rail specialists who will be in touch with answers for you. So I want to thank you for attending this webinar. I hope it inspired some wintry travel ideas, and have a great day.